response video to some guy called nng274. First video. Alright, reasonable sort of person, but we'll see. So he's making this argument as if, it's this typical argument the anti-natalists get, that somehow nature is above reproach. We can't judge it because it's not a thing, and somehow it's not a thing that can be judged. It's more than a god. It's so much less than a god. It's somehow not within the realm of a judgeable mechanism. That somehow, because it's nature, it's not something that can be judged. And it's just pointless. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. We can judge microbes and say this is a lousy microbe, this is a good microbe. It was created by nature, but we can tell the difference between one that's conducive to, well, generally speaking, they all kind of suck, but some suck a lot more than others. Anyway, we'll play some of this and I'll try to just make my point.
Hi, this is nng274. This is my first video. This is a response to conference report. His response to the video, Get Out of Town. In the video, you just say that we have to judge evolution as a process, just like we would have to judge a god. Like, you're basically saying if we want to say that God would be a bad god because of the problem of evil, then we would also have to say that evolution is a bad process, or we have to say that it's not an optimal process because we have to judge it like if it was an industrial process or something along those lines. But I sort of don't agree, because I think we can't judge evolution as a process, just because any process, industrial process, the way you judge it is basically in reference to the goal that you're trying to achieve, like, for instance.
Yeah, well, I think that's just sort of bogus. You don't judge it based on what created the process or what the ambition was or any of that stuff. You don't have to have any of those things. You just judge it because it either produces or it doesn't produce. So I sort of made that argument in my video. Well, he's going to go on to say that you can't do the God judging thing because, yeah, well, that's supposed to be an omnipotent, superhero God. And so that's why we can judge it, because the world doesn't look like a superhero made it. But that falls down on its face, just because if God was a superhero God, he'd be smarter than us and he could have a plan. Like, all this bullshit is part of the plan and it's going to make us better and blah, 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 blah. So that doesn't really work. And the bottom line is, I don't think most religious people are even claiming a perfect God. They're just claiming a powerful God. He will fuck you up if you don't do what he says. He's got superpowers. So, yeah, but whatever. I mean, the bottom line is where would you draw the line? How dumb would I have to make the creator of the universe before you would say, okay, I can't judge it anymore? So if I make a creator of the universe that has a 50 IQ, you're still going to judge what it makes. You're going to say, God, that retard made something really dumb. I mean, it's it's ugly, it's stupid, it's broken, he didn't follow the instructions, he didn't do it logically because he's stupid. Well, how dumb would it have to be? How many IQ points do I extract before all of a sudden you say, oh, the process is now exempt from judgment because it can't form a goal and it can't understand consequences and it can't do any of this other stuff, so therefore the process is now exempt and we're not going to judge the process. We're not going to say, what is this thing called evolution? Oh, it's replication for the sake of replication. Create gladiators that kill each other, then kill the winner, and then just do it all over again. That's the short script for this game. Now, logically, you can look at that short script and say, alright, if I propose that, let me build that one on Mars. It would be rational if there was a Martian EPA, if they would look at that and say, well, this doesn't sound like a good idea. I mean, I don't see any purpose accomplished here, and it just sounds like you're just going to create a lot of victims. So what's the point? I mean, you got nothing else to give me? This doesn't sound like a process worth initiating. Isn't that the argument? And isn't that the intellectual thought experiment here? Is we're looking at the process and we're saying, is there a reason if we had the power, and I would argue we do, but let's just say we don't, but if we did, and that's the thought experiment, if it required us to keep putting quarters into the machine, wouldn't it be a valid question to ask? Well, should we keep feeding this machine quarters, this nature machine? Or should we just say, no, it's eaten enough quarters, it's made enough of a mess. So, yeah, why would it be exempt, though? I mean, at what point? I mean, why would something be colossally, why is the colossally stupid made exempt? That's the very thing you want to, that's when you should notice. That's when you should start paying attention. When the designer's name on your thing is colossally stupid, when that's the guy who signed it, well, that's the time you want to start scrutinizing and picking at it and wondering whether it's going to blow up or irradiate you or do something else horrible. That's when you should be paying attention, and that's when you should start dissecting and picking apart. That's the very time you should be skeptical and judgmental, is when you have reason to be. And that's a huge reason when Colossally Stupid has signed the architectural papers, the diagrams, the blueprint. Colossally Stupid is the signer of the blueprint. You should be able to judge that. Let's judge what Colossally Stupid built. Yeah, that makes perfectly good sense to me. So, anyway, we'll play the rest of this just for the hell of it.
You judge an industrial process by how efficiently or how well it produces a certain product, and you're sort of assuming that the goal of evolution is to optimize human well-being.
Yeah, I don't know where you got that from. I don't think he has any such presumption. He's just judging it. It's created this thing called sentience, and he will argue that sentience has value, that it's innately substantive, and that you just can't walk away from the substance of it. And so it's created a value thing, and now the value thing is going to be treated, it's going to be impacted, it's going to be influenced, it's going to be messed with. And now it has a meaning equation. That's the production. So now we have a cost. All right, so it's not free anymore. It's not irrelevant anymore. It's not just scribbling on some irrelevant wall somewhere. No, now it's a real wall in a meaningful place, and the scribbling is going to impact. And so now we can judge whether it's a good impact or a bad impact.
And I don't really think that that's justified. I don't really think you can say that evolution is for us. I mean, evolution doesn't really have any goal, and I really don't think you can't really.
Well, again, goal-oriented is just silly. You don't have to have a goal to be jeopardizing something's welfare. You can inconsequentially, you can indirectly, you can unanticipatedly influence things, and the fact that you're influencing them is a fact. And the fact is, nature influences. It creates an impact. It creates a blot on the paper, and we can judge what that blot represents. And what does evolution represent? Well, the important fact is 500 million years of feeling creatures doing the consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction thing, and that's sort of significant. And the question that needs to be answered in some sort of way is it minimally efficient? Is it producing more than it's consuming? Or more specifically, is it consuming in a way that's acceptable for the value of what it's producing? Is the production so important, so valuable, that we can basically impose the negative on people who didn't sign up for it?
Say that evolution, you can't really judge evolution. It seems to me that evolution is sort of beyond good or evil.
Well, again, see, good or evil, you're the one just completely obsessed with motivations, and we're not judging a motivation. We're not judging a thing as the creator and saying we're going to put you in jail. He's judging the process. He said the word process to separate it from a motive, and to just say what is it in and of itself. What is the process? What does it produce? What does it do? And the argument is that what it does is it causes this suffering thing, and it causes this other thing called a delusion in human psychology of accomplishment. But beyond that, what else is there besides dirty diapers? Not a hell of a lot.
Sort of like an underlying fact, I guess. And since it doesn't really have any purpose, it's hard really to.
Well, again, it's another projection of motivation kind of word. And again, you're the one saying we have to ascribe a goal before we can have a product. Before I can have an impact, I have to have an ambition. No, I can impact completely inadvertently, completely accidentally, and somebody can look at my impact and be critical of the product, what it produces, what that impact, what it causes, and to happen to something else, and they can judge it and say it's not productive. I can be called unproductive for acts that are not of my conscious volition.
To judge you. And I think the difference is that the reason why we can say that the problem of evil is a problem for religious people is because religious people claim that the God is a benevolent God. It's an all good.
Well, again, you're saying they claim that. That hasn't been my experience with religious people, that they're claiming that God is benevolent beyond the sense that God will take care of you if you kiss him the right way and hug him the right way. But yeah, if you're not nice to God, God will screw you up royally. So even that phrase isn't really correct, I don't think.
Good God, but I don't think that's being claimed by any biologist or.
Well, you can laugh and giggle at it, but you know what? You just strawmanned his argument. Okay, he's not saying that any biologist is claiming that. He's not claiming that himself. He's not claiming that evolution has an intent, that it's acting out of its own volition. He called it a process. It is a process. It's called natural selection. And what generates the process is chemistry and physics. And through some happenstance on this planet, through chemistry, one cell, one time, did this replicating thing, and we were off to the races. And 4 billion years later, we have these eccentric little silly humans playing word games, creating straw men, creating fake arguments to tear down. And that's all you did here, is you created a fake argument to tear down, and that's it. The question still remains: is the process of natural selection applied on chemistry that has now acquired sentience a sufficient ball game? Is this a sufficient game to be worthy of putting more quarters in the play machine?
Evolutionists. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out, I guess.
Yeah, create a straw man. Yeah, well, that was a little evil of you, I have to admit. It's a little bit evil. Anyway, only 5 views. Yeah, well, it's first video. It's rough on YouTube nowadays. You really have to work at it to get yeah, it's bullshit. But your name ain't gonna help. nng274. It's not a great name. No, I just can't do much with that. But anyway, it's to each his own, all that such, whatnot, and so forth. So, till next time, and such.